I remembered that every time something came to me, it was like, oh, thank God you're here. And so I wanted to kind of go find myself again at 16. And so I got together with some friends and we made this little plan to build these rafts. And we would take garbage and recycled materials, and we would build this home together, and we would kind of take all the parts of our culture that we loved about creativity and thinking ecologically as much as we could, and sort of just radical politics and trying to make new spaces in the world and trying to make a new place to exist in, and building our own motors out of car motors and cobbling together things out of everything you could. And in the end we made this kind of really crazy, like 110 feet of junk raft, and we traveled down the Mississippi, and it was incredibly magical, just free, just out there on the river, traveling, really making your own world, and kind of bringing these crazy elements and a little bit like a circus, and a way to have something joyful and to kind of draw people in and to make people feel like, wow, what is that? Who are you? What are you doing? And people were very confused and very happy, and it was simultaneously like fear and joy. One person is like, call the police, and the other person's like, do you want some dinner? Can you use my shower? Are you okay? And actually, you see this guy in the front. He's the person that taught us how to build rafts, and he actually built a raft that went from New York to Ireland across the sea. Crazy person. And so we did this for a couple of years, and we traveled down the Mississippi. And actually later, I got a letter from a girl who was 16, and she was visiting her uncle, and one of the rafts pulled up, and she said she saw us, and she said, oh, a different world is possible. Those are my people. And so she moved to San Francisco looking for us, and she found us like 10 years later. And this happened a few times. People would kind of run away with this circus. And then I decided that I wanted to continue the project, but I wanted it to be a little bit more, less of like a commune and more of a sculpture. And so I made these rafts, but we're still a commune, obviously, and made these series of rafts. And the second time I was really thinking a lot about climate change and about the sort of image of the rising seas and of the sort of cities, like this feeling that the seas rise and kind of break off bits of the city. And so there was a way in which the rafts had something very fantastical and very dreamlike and kind of fairy tale, at the same time as also thinking about things that were very dire and very terrifying and sort of political, and then at the same time as being, having a performance. And so there was a few threads weaving together, and some of it was very fantastical and magical, but I think that's kind of how art works for me, is that there's a way in which stories that don't seem connected can become connected. And so, yeah, look at these very vulnerable people out on this raft. Here we are coming down the Hudson River. We went into the New York Harbor. We circumnavigated New York, which was an incredible experience. And then we put these into a shipping container, and we brought them.
And sorry, what was the year?
So this was 2008. And then the next year, we put them into a shipping container. We didn't go across the Atlantic, but we showed up in Slovenia, and we put the rafts back together and built a new one. And then we went into the Adriatic. And actually bringing these to Europe was really crazy because, in the United States, our laws about boating are very small. We don't have many laws. But here, they were like, oh my God, you can't do this. But because we were registered, we were legal in the United States, they had to respect and they had to allow us, even though they didn't want to allow us to go. They said, well, we can't stop you because you're actually a legal vessel. So even though it looks like a totally crazy thing, it was actually legal. And what we did, and the guy who I pointed out in the blue shirt, he taught us this. You just go to the DMV in the United States and you say, I have a wooden boat. It's 20 feet long. That's all you say. And they give you a license plate. You don't show them any pictures. You slap the license plate number on and you're good to go. You get into your inspection. So we got into Venice. Of course, the police loved us. And for me, I really loved the way that the image of this floating city and Venice, Venice was really my muse in this sense. And we gave performances, because the rafts, it was very much about inviting people to have an experience with us. And so we wanted to be very open and very kind of welcoming in a sense. Here we are going under the Grand Canal in Venice. This we were not allowed to do, but we did it in the middle of the night because I always wanted these boats to go under the Grand Canal. And then that was it. And then actually now, pieces of these rafts are at Fluktuart on the walls. So it doesn't exist as a raft anymore.
You used to say that all I want in the world is to create something that has the effect of a herringbone in time of crisis. So like we can see here, but looking at your work, we can say definitely that you're a really engaged artist and that you're going to the field, but are you also engaged on humanitarian causes or? Yeah. Could you tell us more?
Sure. Actually, first thing I just want to say before I forget is the thing that I think is the reason that I love Fluktuart and why I was so instant to say yes to it is that I think when we were building the rafts, there was this feeling that if you want something new to happen, that you build it on the water. That there's some way in which the water allows you to give birth to new things that can kind of travel and you can make new space. And so I think that the way that Fluktuart is this museum of urban art, which is very unusual, there's not many of these in the world, it's one of the first. And so it feels to me the fact that it's born on the water really makes sense, that there's something like the water makes the seeds somehow. But so while we were working in Venice, there was like the economic collapse happened in the United States and many people were living in stress. And I thought, gosh, I was like, we're here and we're doing these crazy things with these rafts, but and we've learned how we can build in difficult situations, we can problem solve, we don't take no for an answer. We really have these skills. So what would happen if we use these skills to respond to a true situation of need? And so that's this question about in the field. And so what happened shortly after that was the earthquake of 2010. So that was about 6 months after I got home from Venice. This earthquake happened, and I'm from Florida, so Haiti is right near, like my neighbor basically. And the situation was totally catastrophic. And it's truly, I don't know how much people in France really think about Haiti, but France started Haiti, right? And not only did France start Haiti, but when the Haitians became independent, France sued Haiti. So Haiti had to give millions and millions of dollars in resources to the French because they got their own independence, right? So from the beginning, Haiti had no chance to have a solid foundation and stability. And so for me, I think that all of the way that the size, an earthquake of the scale that happened in Haiti also has happened in France, but nobody knows about it because the buildings are so strong and well made that it didn't even hurt anyone. But on this scale in Haiti, it destroyed things. And so it really was this situation where it felt like, this socio-political situation had created a disaster and killed these millions of people. And, many people have tried to help over the years, and sometimes you try to help and you make it worse, and it's a very confusing dynamic. But what we decided to do was we decided to try to get together with a small group of people and to see if we could help them rebuild. So my friends and I taught ourselves a style of architecture that is based off of using the dirt that's on the ground and combining it with cement, and you end up getting a style of building that's very incredibly strong. But since we were artists, we also wanted to make it kind of beautiful as well. So we were like, okay, how can we be rebuilding? But even though it's a disaster, we're still thinking about making it feel good and something that you want to see. And so first we built this community center, this dome community center. And the thing that we found right away is that one of the most important things was not the building, actually. It was that we created jobs and we created paying jobs, and we created ways for people to work together to make their lives better when they felt so out of control. And so we kept going, and over the course of the project, so we're about to finish the project in 2020, because that will be 10 years since the earthquake. And actually we might do an auction to fundraise for it here in France, which I think is great, because I know that I've heard people in France don't think much about Haiti, but I think it would be a lovely gesture for the French people to rally a little bit with this. And did you have a question?
Oh. No, please go on.
Okay, so I'll just show through some pictures. Of this is the earth bag style of building. So we built a community center, and then we built 3 homes. And finally we started working with earth, and finally the last project that we did was working with bamboo. And so we spent some time kind of learning the question that we as artists and architects were trying to solve together with people was, when you don't have access to building materials, but you want to build a home that feels modern and feels strong, how do you do this? And so we kind of taking the knowledge of architects all around the world and sort of combining it with old techniques and old practices to create something that feels like people want to live in. And then we also started an after-school program kind of teaching kids about the architecture, and so that the kids will kind of understand more like what we're doing, and taking the class of kids to the building site and teaching them, and talking about how do you build buildings, how do you build cities, so that the project has an aspect of making sure that we're sort of learning and communicating what's happening while we're doing it.
In addition of IT, you also did community work in Braddock and New Orleans. So it was in the same project and the same wish to help the community. Could you tell us more?
Actually, I didn't bring any pictures of that, but I'll just tell like a quick. So I have a couple of other projects that I started in a similar vein, where there's a town in Pennsylvania that had like economically collapsed, like Detroit, where the industry leaves and then the economic collapse happened. And so I worked with people on how to try to repair a building, but to repair the building in a way that gets the community involved and makes art and gives resources. And then there's another project in New Orleans that if anyone goes to New Orleans, you should visit. It's called the Music Box. And I worked with a group, and together we made kind of this playground of like musical structures. And in a way it actually started after the hurricane, but really it evolved into something which was very joyful and really just like a public engaging space.
So art is always for you a way to bring people together and also to help them and to solve his own problem. So it could be personal, but also due to some crisis. If you want to add some things more, I don't know if you have more pictures.
I do have one last project, which is about the addiction work. So my newest, the last project that I did that was a community-based project was around addiction. So as I was saying, really only until about 5 years ago did I ever kind of face the fact that I came from a family that had so much struggle. Before that, I was just running from it, like, la la la, that's in the past. And then as I found, like, your past comes to find you. If you try to run from it, it comes to find you. So eventually you have to look at it and face it, And so the image that I showed of the installation, that's the way that I face it when I'm drawing. But there are also ways that I want to face it through my community. And so I know that you guys don't have this situation in France, but in the United States we have a real disaster has happened where the drug companies have convinced the doctors to give everyone heroin, basically, to get people addicted to heroin is what they're doing. And
fentanyl, that's it.
Fentanyl. It is, it's horrible. It's a horrible situation. And so, in addition to the normal amount of addiction, we also have people that are getting sucked into it. And so what I did was, there's a group in Philadelphia, and if anyone's interested in community-based work, you should look up Philly Mural Arts. because I have never seen a better organization that does true community-based art. They work in prisons, they work with people coming out of prisons, they work in rehabs, and what they did is there's an area of Philadelphia that people, I'm not kidding you, are dying on the left and the right of you. I've never seen anything like it in my life. It's it's like a war. It's truly like a war zone of homeless people living homeless, people addicted, people literally dying in the streets. It's the most terrifying thing I've ever seen. And this group, this artist group, said, okay, I know it seems crazy that we're gonna do this, but actually we're gonna start an art center right in the middle of this, in the center of this catastrophe. And at first you think, do you really need art? Is that what you need here? But what I actually found is that, of course, people need rehab, and they need therapy, and they need beds, and they need showers. But actually, the reason that people end up addicted and end up on the street is because of trauma. And what trauma does is it messes up your nervous system so badly that you cannot calm yourself, and it's very hard for you to trust other people because you had so many bad experiences in your life that you don't feel that people want to help you. You feel that they want to exploit you. And so what this place did, where we were making art together with people, is it created a space where before somebody could say, okay, this was a rehab center, but in the storefront, you know, here we are giving manicures to people, because if you're living homeless, you can't get clean, and no one ever sort of cares for you. So we said, okay, on this day, you come and we paint your nails and clean your hands, right? And it seems funny, but actually it's like a human connection, you know? And so what the art center did is it made a space for people to just sit down and to say, okay, I'm safe for 1 hour. For 1 hour, I know that you actually want to help me. And then slowly you get used to the idea, well, maybe there are people who want to help me, and maybe there are people who I can trust. And so this is a woman who used to be addicted, has lost all kinds of people, and now she's on the other side, and she helps, she is like an incredible, she's a rock for her community, and she helps people. So I ended up painting a mural we did some work in this community center. We did art workshops, we did art therapy, we did all kinds of events and manicures and these kinds of things. And then from that, I created a mural out on the street, which included people who were addicted, people who were homeless, but also social workers, people who were helping. So kind of everyone together in that community. And the other thing that we did is there's a doctor who really changed my life that helped me see the link between trauma and addiction, and we brought him and he gave talks to the Department of Behavioral Health. So then we did storytelling. So a lot of the work was around also trying to help people change the way that we understand why people are addicted. Because I think that if we can have compassion for people who are addicted and living homeless, then we can offer help in a better way than if we just don't trust them or hate them or something like this.
Thank you so much. If you have any question, do not hesitate.
I just wanted to say something more. I think it's really amazing because everything you said, you can find some pieces in the exhibition, and I mean you can find the old stories at Flipchart, so you did a nice job.
Thank you. Yeah, I didn't show any pictures of Flipchart because you guys will see it, right?
And about Flipchart, how was your state of mind when Nicola asked you to do the immersive installation and to be the first one also to opening this incredible place?
It was a big honor. Actually, it was Adeline and Nicola together. So, you know, I've been working, I think that actually Paris and, you know, working with Adeline has been one of the most supportive of my career for the last 15 years. Like really, I feel like of this place of all places, like has really remained constant and like has kind of continued to help me think through my work and help me realize projects, and so really helping me grow as an artist, both of you guys. So thank you for that. So yeah, I was honored. I was like, oh wow, this sounds, you know, awesome, and to be the first one was really cool. Of course, they were still building it, so it's also really stressful. We're sorry for that.
Donc si vous avez des questions, n'hésitez pas à lever la main, je vous amène le micro.
I have a very specific question.
Yeah.
What can you tell us about your model, Ananda? Ananda?
Hey, are you asking about a specific